Sunday, 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 Sunday school. Sunday, 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 Sunday. Sunday, 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 Sunday.
Hey guys, it's Miss Waynell from ThatSundaySchoolGirl.com. You already know I am basically like your super cool auntie who just happens to teach Sunday school, and I am here to get you ready for Sunday, April 18th. First of all, I owe you an apology. I completely forgot to make the video last weekend. I was in Memphis, Tennessee with my family, and we just got busy doing family things, and I was having a great time, and I just slipped my mind. So I'm so sorry. I did upload your kid pack, but I completely forgot about the video. But I'm here today and I'm excited about spending the time with you. I've had an amazing week. My nephew came back with me from the trip to Memphis, so he's been here all week long. So I've worked hard. I've gotten to play a little bit. We've had a really good time. As a matter of fact, last night he talked me into going to Sky Zone with him, and yes, I did jump on the trampolines with him just a little bit. He probably has funny stories, but I will never let him tell you what really happened at Sky Zone. So it's been fun. Today is our last day and we're just kind of enjoying the day. But of course, I gave him a book too because I want him to be ready and I want you to be ready for our lesson this week. Again, I hope that you've had a really, really great last couple of weeks and that you are making a difference where you are. You know that I always depend on you. I know that your families depend on you, but most of all, God is depending on you to be your absolute best where you are. Listen, for our lesson today, we are talking about Nehemiah. Now, you know that we've been talking about prophets in the Old Testament, and Nehemiah is an amazing story of a guy who had great courage, but most of all, a deep desire, a heart to do something for God. I want to show you a video and then we'll come back and talk about the lesson with Nehemiah and how he had this desire to rebuild his hometown. If you've ever lost anything, especially like due to a fire, if your home has ever been involved in a fire, or you know someone who's lost something in a fire, then you know that it can be very, very difficult to rebuild. And that's exactly what we're going to see in our story. But let's take a look at this video and I'll be right back. In that video was actually my home church, and the man was my grandfather. When he was a young man, he desired to do something great for the Lord. He was already called to preach, and he knew that God had also assigned him to be a pastor. He wanted to build a church, and you know what? God helped him to do that. He honored the desire that was in his heart. And he didn't have a lot of money, but God helped him every step of the way, even finding the materials that were needed, connecting him with the right people. And ultimately, he built a beautiful facility that is the Henson Memorial Church of God in Christ. But I can remember being about 6 or 7 years old and our phone rang way in the middle of the night, like I'm talking really late. My parents got up and had to get me out of bed. I remember us getting in the car and going down, and the phone call came to let us know that the church was on fire. I remember arriving and coming down the street and seeing the fire trucks and that beautiful building that my grandfather worked so hard to build. I remember seeing the flames and smelling the smells of the burning building, and I could hear the sounds. Even though they asked us to stay afar off, I could see it all. And I know how heartbreaking it was, and watching my grandfather and even the members of the church who were so hurt and upset by watching our church burn. Fortunately, it did not burn to the ground, but it did take several months for the church to be repaired so that we were able to have worship service in there again. In fact, we had service in their home until the church was rebuilt. And that sort of reminded me of our lesson this week as we're looking at the prophet Nehemiah. Now, remember, we've been talking about these prophets. The prophet is the mouthpiece of God, someone who God gives a special assignment to, and they use their voices, they use their places in a way to do great things for God. Well, we've also talked about the children of Israel, and we've talked about a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. After they split, when they got to the promised land, they had a little split, and there was, of the 12 tribes, 10 of the tribes went to the north, and 2 of the tribes went to the south. The south was Benjamin and Judah, and that is the tribe known as Judah, the area known as Judah. And they stayed in Jerusalem. And for a while, they did the things that pleased God, but ultimately, they started to make bad choices. They followed after idols, and they forgot who they belonged to, and God had to get their attention. You know, sometimes when we don't make the best choices, even our parents have to get our attention by maybe putting you on punishment or taking away things that you enjoy. And that's what happened with Judah. And so they were overtaken because they did not remember God and they did not honor God. He allowed the Babylonian Empire to come and overtake them. And when they came and conquered them, it was awful. They destroyed their entire city. And just like our church, they burned it with fire. The entire city, all of the walls around the city, the gates of the city, everything was burned. And they took those people into captivity. They stayed in captivity for 70 years. And no one thought about Jerusalem and the fact that it was there and in all the broken pieces and all the burned up city, except Nehemiah. Even though Nehemiah was born during the exile, he never lived in Jerusalem. He knew that his hometown was there, and he desired to go back and to repair it. He was not okay when he looked around and saw the condition of that area. And sometimes you and I are like that. We look around and there's something in the world that just bothers us, and you want to do something about it. 2 young people that I always think about as it relates to looking around and seeing a need and being willing to do something about it. There's my friend Kendall in Kansas City, who saw the need for food in her community where there were people who just didn't have enough to eat. And so about 6 years ago, she talked with her parents, and she now runs what is known as Kendall's Campaign. I'm also exceptionally proud of my niece, who for, I believe, 4 years now has given donation at her birthday time to the Children's Hospital in Kansas City. She's donated socks, and this year she donated masks, and I believe she donated more than 500 masks. Because God will sometimes allow us to see a thing that is broken or see a need, and he will put that desire in your heart to do something about it. So he did that for Nehemiah, but he knew that he had a few hurdles that he had to get through. So he talks to the king about wanting to do something special, and the king asks him, "How can I help you?" And he tells the king what he needs to go back into Jerusalem. "I need a letter so that I can get there safely and no one will bother me on my way there. And I need the materials. I do want to rebuild, but I don't have what it takes to rebuild." And so the king gave him those things. That's where our lesson starts. When he gets into Jerusalem, he can't just run in and just start building everything he sees, but he takes his time and he begins to look around. What is this big job that I have to do? What is it? How do I move? I see all of this rubble here, all of this damage in the city. How do I begin to clean this up? How do I begin to tackle a project this big? But Nehemiah is also very careful. He doesn't tell everybody what he wants to do. Sometimes we have to be so careful about who we share our dreams with, who we share our plans with. And Nehemiah knew that there would be people who would not be happy about his desire to rebuild. And so he doesn't tell very many people. In fact, he goes out late at night to take a walk around the city. He really wants to see, how bad is it out here? And guess what? When he went out there, it was just as bad as he thought it would be. It was so bad that even the beast or the animal that he was riding on could barely walk through all the rubble. Now that he has an idea of just how big the job is, he turns around and he comes back. And now he's ready to talk about the job. He pulls together leaders in that area and he says, "You all see what's going on around here. I'm not the only one who sees that the city is damaged. I'm not the only one who sees that this has been burned. I'm not the only one who knows that we need to rebuild. Come on. We can do this. Let's rebuild the city." He rallies the leaders in a way that they want to do the job with him. In fact, they say, "Let us do this. We're going to be behind you. Let's get into this. We're going to do it together." Why does Nehemiah want to do this? Well, it matters to him. He cares about his homeland. He cares about the people. But most of all, He does not want to be made ashamed in front of the world. People know that they were God's people. And he says the word that they use is reproach in the King James text. He says, we don't want to be a reproach. In other words, we don't want people to look at us and make fun of us and say, hey, we thought God was on your side. We thought God loved you. He says, no, we want the world to know that we belong to you. So let's get started and let's rebuild. We have a very excited man. He's already prayed and God is on his side. The king is supporting him. He has a plan. He's already been to check out the land, and it's a big job, but there are people who've agreed to help him do the work. What else could go wrong? Haters. That's right. There are haters in the Bible. And here we find Sanballat, Tobias, and Geshem, who are against the work that Nehemiah wants to do. They ask him questions. Pretty much they want to know, who do you think you are? Why are you doing this? Aren't you going against the king by doing this? But Nehemiah lets them know, God is on my side. God is bigger than any of this. He's bigger than the king. He's bigger than you. And he knows that God is going to give him good success. And he lets them know that we are going to succeed in rebuilding this city, rebuilding these walls, rebuilding these gates. And when we do it, when it looks great around here, he tells them, you will have no claim to the land that is here. This is a great lesson to let us know that as we see things in the world that bother us, that if we pray and ask God how to help us become solutions, he will allow us to be the answer to problems in the world that are around us. And remember, when you do great things for God, it doesn't mean that there will not be people who oppose you, which means they are against you. It means you might have haters, but even when you do, you can be assured that when God's hand is on you, that he is going to give you good success. Here's what I really want you to know. I want you to always remember that no matter how it looks, God is able. When Nehemiah came and he surveyed the city, he just observed and looked at what was around. It was really bad. It was terrible to see everything in shambles, but he knew that with God on his side, he was going to be able to bring repair to that city. So no matter what you're trying to do, no matter how big it is, God is able. I want you to feel determined. Be determined not to give up even when situations look difficult, when they look demanding, or when there are discouraging things or discouraging people around you. I want you to keep your spirit of determination. Why? Because here's what I want you to do. Remember that you are in God's hand. And as long as God's hand is on you, you have benefits. What are your benefits? His hands protect you. His hand brings you into the right places with the right people. And his hand is always going to give you everything that you need to be successful. That's our lesson for this week. I hope it was helpful and that you enjoy studying it with your class. Have an amazing rest of the weekend, and I want you to have the absolute best week that you can in your studies next week. Until we meet again, I'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sunday, 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 Sunday school. Sunday, 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 Sunday. Sunday, 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 Sunday school. Sunday, 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 Sunday. Hey, Sunday, 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 Sunday school. La da da, la da 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 da, la da da, la da 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 da, la da da, la da 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 da. La da da, la da 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 da, la da da, la da 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 da, la da da, la da da. Changing the way you see Sunday school with that Sunday school.